I would say that analytics is the most democratic space, yeah, that you will ever find because it doesn't ask for your background. It doesn't ask for your degree. Trainings are available everywhere. You don't need to spend a single penny on trainings because the best learnings are available open source on starting with YouTube. There is no one role in any business where you can't apply data science.
So here we go. So today we have Vijoe in the podcast. Welcome, Vijoe.
Good morning, Serge. Thanks for having me here. Good morning.
All right, man. Looking forward to talk to you because you joined us about 2 years ago now, I think.
Exactly 2 years back.
Exactly 2 years back. Congratulations. That's when we started the whole journey of bringing analytics into operations, right? So in our finance operation, commercial, people operations, we were exploring and said, man, let's see how can we bring real advanced analytics into that operation. And we basically brought you in, and man, amazing journey, I think, in the last 2 years. So it would be great if we can talk about that a little bit today, right? Kind of demystify analytics. What is analytics? What is it not? And how did you get into analytics? So let's start at the beginning, man. Just give us a little bit of background, what you studied. Did you start in analytics from day one? Are you a mathematician, or give us a little bit your background?
Yeah, definitely, Serge. So no surprises. I'm also an engineer. You know, in India, it's very difficult to find a person who's not an engineer. So when I finished my graduation, I had only two choices. If you are really intelligent, you can become a doctor. For that, you need to be like super intelligent, like the best in. So if you're okay, you can become an engineer. That was the situation. Like 16
now
years.
Now you've disappointed 80% of our listeners here. We're all engineers.
Yeah, I mean, in my time, if you're really intelligent, you go for medical, or if you're okay, if you're pretty okay, you go for engineering. So I also went for engineering because somebody told me that engineering is a great career choice. I went for mechanical engineering because somebody said mechanical is evergreen. So I did my mechanical engineering. Then after mechanical engineering, I always wanted to go outside of India for studies. It was my childhood dream of going somewhere out of India and studying. So I was for a year. I didn't do any work, to be honest. I was just preparing for my GMAT, GRE, TOEFL, all of that, and I started writing all the exams for admissions. So I got a lot of admissions in good schools in US, in Canada, in Australia. The challenge was even with scholarship, right? I was finding it too difficult for me to afford, for my parents to afford that, because even if you get 50% scholarship or a 60% scholarship, right? You still require like $30,000-$40,000 to come out of your graduation, right? In a good school. I'm talking about a good college in US.
That's a cheap one.
That's a cheap one. After getting 60-70% scholarship, still needing a lot of money. So that was not something my parents could afford. So that's when I was talking to somebody, and my cousin was in Belgium. Yeah. So he said, "Vijoe, why don't you apply in Belgium?" And honestly, Belgium was not in my scheme of things at all, right? For us at that time, right, the only European country I would know is UK, because UK, India and UK are pretty close, so we know UK alone. But otherwise, Belgium doesn't really come in our scheme of things at all. And then he said, "Man, I studied in a university called Leuven. It's a QS 100 university. In fact, it's the best 60th university in the world, and they have a scholarship program. Why don't you apply for that?" And I applied for it, and I applied for something called MIM, Masters in Industrial Management. So the thought process was, if I do an MBA, it will be too general because everybody will have an MBA. But if I do an MBA in engineering, that will be a niche space, because the prerequisite for that course was you need to be an engineer to take up that road, to take up that course. Either you have to be mechanical or industrial engineer to take up that course. So I applied for MIM, Masters in Industrial Management. Very luckily, I got a scholarship, and I went to Belgium for my studies. Yeah, so I was there for like 18 months because my graduation was only less than 2 years. Did my graduation from KU Leuven, and at that time, my ambition was to go to Dubai, because for in India, especially for the people from my state, right, from Kerala, everybody's ambition is to go to Dubai. Yeah. And I was trying for a visiting visa. It didn't work out. Then again, somebody came from nowhere and he said, man, why don't you go to UK? I was like, man, it sounds very easy, but how will I go to UK?
It sounds like some religious story where you have several epiphanies, right? Somebody appears
Exactly.
and says, go to Belgium, go to UK.
Yeah. So in my life, I always had some God sent people who always helped me from nowhere. Some of them I didn't even know. So one day, because I used to work in a pub in Belgium in 18 months, I was working in different pubs in Belgium. I'm pretty good as a barman. I'm pretty good. I worked 18 months more than that actually as a barman. So in a bar, I met somebody and he said, why don't you go to UK? I was like, man, how can I go to UK? He's like, he said, man, no, there is a visa called Working Holiday Maker visa, which is meant for guys who are from Commonwealth and less than 27 years of age. And next day itself, I went to Brussels and just asked for a visa, and she gave me a visa. The consulate gave me a visa, even without asking personally. So I got a 2-year visa in UK. Moved to UK the very next week because I had done with my graduation. In a week's time, I was in the UK. I took a bus because I couldn't afford a flight. I took a Euro rails or something. Some bus was there. It was pretty cheap. 50.
Like a train connection in a tunnel, no?
Yeah. 50 euros or something. So I got and then I got to UK. Again, went back to my original profession, which is barman. I was a barman in London. I got a job in a very famous club called Tiger. I worked there for 2 months because I didn't have enough money to stay in London and do it, right? And apply for a job. So I wanted something to meet my expenses. So I first got a job as a barman in Tiger, which is a very famous club in Trafalgar Square, very famous actually. Then 2 months I stayed there, then started applying for, I made my first CV, started applying for jobs and all of that. And my first job happened to be with Tesco. My first interview in my life happened to be with Tesco. At that time, I didn't know what Tesco was. I didn't know that it was such a big company. It's the third biggest retailer in the world. The designation was purchasing analyst because my graduation, I had a lot of studies in procurement, supply chain. And I thought it's a great thing if I get it. I applied and I got it. I got that role. Again, I turned lucky because normally they will ask for a background in experience and all of that. The director at that time, he was like, man, you got a degree and you're a master's degree and you're still working in a pub. What are you doing? You should do something. You should do something meaningful in your life. And that's what it is. So he said, okay, I got that job, long story short. My ambition was to become a buyer because if you are a purchasing analyst, right? Normally, purchasing analyst means you learn something in purchasing, then you can grow as a buyer. So I started going for a graduation, rather a certification in buying. There was a registered body in UK to become a buyer. So I spent like a lot of money and registered to that organization to become a buyer. But I think thinking now it's a good thing, but there was nothing about purchasing in that role. That role was all about Excel, VBA, SQL, Access, building dashboards, giving insights and all of that, right? And somebody said, man, Vijoe, you're an analytics now. I said, man, so happy.
I made it.
I made it to analytics. So I said, man, it's great because my designation is also an analyst because there was no fancy designations like data scientist at that point in time. I said, man, great. Finally, I became an analyst, which is really great. So I told everybody that I'm an analyst now. I'm a data analyst doing analytics. So there was a data summit, the analytics summit in Tesco. And I was chosen from my department to represent the team because I was the only analyst. The only person who was close to analytics was me. So they sent me to that session. There again, I met another person in my life, another guy in my life, in my professional life, who again got sent. He was heading the analytics practice for the engineering division of Tesco. Yeah, he was a PhD in operations research, very senior guy, 55-year-old guy, 50 plus guy, very knowledgeable guy. And I happened to be talking to him in that session. And he asked me, what am I doing? I said, I very probably said, I'm doing analytics for procurement, is what I said. Then he's like, very, very interesting. What are you doing in procurement? And then I said, I talked about how I'm building dashboards and insights and all of that. And he said, man, that's really great. Analytics always starts with visualization, basic visibility of what happened in the past and learning from the past and all of that. Then he said, if you're ambitious, there is another side of analytics, which is more than visualization. He said, man, there's something called data science. There's a tool called SAS, because at that time there was no Python or R or anything. The only tool was SAS. And he said, man, there is something called statistics, machine learning, all of that. He said, if you are interested, I can mentor you. And that's, nobody says that, right? Proactively, he said, man, if you are interested, I can even mentor you in that space. So I actually started spending a lot of time with him. He gave me a lot of course content material, all of that. I started doing that, learning that SAS, for example. I started spending a lot of time. Every week I spent like 3-4 hours with him. And he was very accommodative. And in 6 months' time, there was a role in the engineering division as a data analyst, which is the current world data scientist role.
Data science.
And I got that role. He gave me that role. I didn't get that role. He just got me that role under him, reporting into him as a data analyst, actually doing cutting edge analytics on the behavior of all the equipments in the business. Because think about Tesco, they got 6,000 stores worldwide. And they don't want a situation where the equipment fails and they fixes it. Because for a retailer, customer experience is everything. They want a world where they know when an equipment is going to fix and they will proactively fix it even before it fails. And that was an interesting space. And that's how my career started in data science.
All right, man, just one question on that, because if you look back, you had those 3 epiphanies, 3 people who kind of appear, but it doesn't really happen like that, right? So is there something that you do differently? Why somehow you end up meeting those people, or you end up getting those insights? I'm pretty sure a lot of people have worked in a bar, but never ever got into a conversation with somebody about a visa to UK and then the day after leave to the UK, or go to a conference as a very junior person and then meet like a guru in that domain field who says, man, come over here, I'll mentor you. There must be something that you do that other people are not doing.
Yeah, I think honestly, I'm an extrovert by nature. If you put me in a room for one day, I'll die without being able to talk to somebody. That's the kind of person I am. So what I always do, right? I always do is like I try to connect with people, from different fields, right? I don't really shy away from talking to someone. I always believe that people are always, basically we're all good people, and if there's an opportunity, we all want to help somebody, right? We are not. We don't shy away, right? In our own world, if somebody comes to and ask for help, we don't shy away from helping them. So what I always did is like, for example, the last person, the PhD guru in Tesco, normally such a junior guy like me would never make a task of talking to him straight away in a conference when a lot of people wants to talk to him, right? But I felt, man, I should definitely get connected to this guy, because everybody said he's the biggest knowledgeable guy, he's the best guy in the business, right? I think what I do is I don't shy away from making a conversation, and it has really helped in many places in my life. So I think it's a basic trait that I'm an extrovert by nature. So that really helped me in making.
Yeah, it makes it easier to go and approach somebody than maybe somebody who's a bit more introvert and would not dare to go out there at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't get scared by initiating a talk with anyone. So.
All right, good. So and then you end up in analytics, right? So, but you ended up into analytics at a pretty early stage in your career, right? In fact, whereas if you look now, I think analytics really is becoming bigger and bigger every day, every year, right? Every company is going into analytics, as they say. A lot of consulting companies are providing analytic solutions. Everybody wants to be in that space. Do you think it is a space that you need to be in from, kind of day one in your career, or do you think you can still get into analytics when you're 30, 35, and maybe have done your career, let's say 10 years in procurement, and now I want to switch to analytics? Do you think that's easy? Would you have any tips?
I would say, Serge, that analytics is the most democratic space, that you will ever find, because it doesn't ask for your background. It doesn't ask for your degree. You asked a question whether I'm a mathematician. I'm not at all a mathematician. I was pretty bad at in all the subjects. Math was something which I fled badly. So if you think about data science itself, Serge, like we actually started the space of data science. The maturity started coming in the last 10 years only. If you think about it, the new tools, right? Because earlier, if you thought about it, the processing was expensive, the storage was expensive, the tools were expensive. The only tool that was available was SaaS, and SaaS certification was very expensive. Training was very expensive. If you fast forward to 2020, it's very easy now, right? Because there are trainings available everywhere. You don't need to spend a single penny on trainings because the best learnings are available open source. On starting with YouTube. YouTube, I feel, is the best teacher. It's visual. It's very easy for you to learn. But the only thing I would say, Serge, is that you need a lot of dedication to this space. Because think about, like, if you're learning a management subject, right? If you learn that topic, you can say that I know it. But in data science, by learning a concept, it doesn't mean anything to you, because the art of doing data science, you have to learn by solving problem statements. There is no shortcut in being a master in data science. Whether it's in Python as a coder, to try to optimize coding, to understand the frameworks in different areas like a regression or a classification or a clustering or time series or a deep learning. You need to solve problem statements and learn. So the only thing I would say is that data science is a space that anybody can get into. Your background, your degree, or whether you're a mathematician, because 5 years back, we thought that only economists and statisticians can be data scientists. Right now, fast forward to again 2020, anybody can become a data scientist, right?
But isn't that also because is it also not because the tools evolved? Probably because I remember when I did a Six Sigma green belt, for example, like 10 years ago. You would start working in what was the tool called at the time?
I know that.
Minitab, right? You go into Minitab and it has all these functions, but in the end, you need to know exactly how to organize the data. You need to organize the data, then you need to pick the right, kind of algorithm or the function that you want to apply. So you really need to know what you're doing, right? And you need to understand each of the tests that you want to apply, which one to apply, how, normalize the data. So there is quite a lot of technicalities in there. And I think tools have evolved to an extent where now
very large
you don't need to have all that mathematical background.
Yeah, because and that happens with most of the skilled areas, right? For example, BI, 10 years back, that was the highest paid profession, because if you know microstrategy programmer, you are like, it's hard to find a microstrategy programmer 10 years back. But now with the Tableau and Power BI and ClickView, anybody can start doing it, right? Data science, I'm not saying that we already reached that maturity curve, but we are getting there. For example, the languages, right, compared to a SaaS, Python is much more easy for anybody to pick up. It's not, you don't need to be a hardcore coder to pick up Python, for example. Yeah. The concepts, for example, the frameworks, for example, it's all available. You don't need to really build a framework. All the frameworks are available open source. Yeah. The only thing is, you should know the art of using them properly. And I always say that the way you gauge a professional, right, in data science is not whether he can use 100 algorithms, but does he know to use the right algorithm and move a model from 60% to 90% accuracy by doing feature engineering, by identifying the right data variables. And that's where somebody's skills really comes out. It's not that I know 100 techniques. Doesn't really mean much in analytics. So answer to your question, Serge, I would say it's an area that anybody can get into any space. There are a lot of companies now, right, Serge? They don't even take interviews, like technical interviews. All they do is they will give a use case. You need to solve it. And if you solve it, you got the job. Yeah. And the only interview that they do is to ensure that you are a cultural fit for the company. But otherwise, technical interviews are just a use case that you need to solve. So I would say it's a very democratic space that anybody can aspire to get in, but you need to really dedicate your time. It's not like a management subject where you learned a book and you learned it. It doesn't work in data science.
That's it. You have to apply, basically, right? You have to apply
and learn. That's the only way to
learn. So
learn.
how would you imagine that today I'm in procurement, I'm in whatever, I'm in marketing, and I want to get into analytics? Great, I can go to YouTube, I can figure out, start following some courses there. probably. Then how would I start applying? Do you think it's possible for yourself to start applying in your own job, or are there any sources out there where you can practice?
Definitely, a very, very great, very good question, to be honest, Serge. Two things, Serge. Okay, first thing is there is no one role in any business where you can't apply data science, and we are seeing that in operations everywhere, right, Serge? If you look at our journey 2 years back and the maturity that we are having now, man, everybody is trying to put science into every process that they do. So every role, big or small, you have an opportunity to use your skills in that role. That's first thing. Beyond that, Serge, so we talked about a lot of open source platforms to learn data science techniques. There is a lot of open source platforms where you can get a lot of data sets and problem statements. For example, Kaggle, yeah, UCLA. In Kaggle, for example, if you go, you can solve a lot of problem statements. People are putting newer and newer problem statements. You want to work on price elasticity problems. The data is there. Yeah. You want to work on predictive maintenance. The data is there. You want to work on churn. The data is there. So that's the biggest plus. Sometimes what people say is like, okay, I learned this, but there's no opportunity for me to explore because there's nobody's giving an opportunity. In data science, nobody can complain about that also, because there are enough open source platforms where you can really go and, really use your skill set to solve a problem statement.
Yeah. All right. And what makes the best data scientist?
Let me talk from our perspective, Serge, right? From ABInBev perspective rather than a different perspective, right? Because there are companies who do data science as their bread and butter, right? For example, all the product companies, yeah. For them, they build data science products and they sell those data science products, and that's their business model. If you think about at least operations analytics in ABI, right? Our scope is to bring value to the business. Yeah, we can do any technique, we can bring any level of complexity, but if you are not bringing value to the business, you lose the game. Because data science is analytics, right? Data analytics it's a cost. It's not a necessity. I always tell to people that it's a luxury. It's not an absolute necessity, right? If you think about ABI itself, right? ABI became the biggest brewer in the world, not because they had analytics at that point in time, right? So analytics only came into play now. So I always say that analytics is a cost, and you really need to substantiate the need for your existence. Because if you're a luxury, you should be really able to prove that, yeah, this is a luxury that you're going to invest on, but I'm going to give you a return on that, right? So for me, definitely, sir, is somebody's ability to find an opportunity. Yeah. So I always say that you need to be a consultant rather than being a data scientist. Yeah. So normally, typically, if you look at a consultant identifies a problem statement, and in 90% of the cases, he'll run away without solving it, right? He'll say, this is a problem statement and somebody has to fix it. The only difference in our world is that you should be really good at identifying an opportunity, yeah, and then fixing it by applying data science. So for me, I always give weightage to the former part, which is on how good are you in identifying opportunities or working with stakeholders. Because we have one manager for 15 people. A manager cannot mentor everyone and identify opportunities for everybody, right? So for me, the biggest strength is the behavioral skill set or the leadership skill set of identifying a problem statement that makes value for the business, and that's easy to solve. And second comes this technical skill set. Technical skill set, it's common for everyone. For me at least, what differentiates between an average data scientist and a great data scientist is his or her ability to identify opportunities on her own.
Yeah, so you need to be able to talk to, let's say, the business or the functions, departments that you're working with to really understand
exactly
their problems, right? Yeah. Their data before you're able to create that problem statement. Right?
Yeah, and it becomes pretty challenging, Serge, because we are not domain experts, right? One day I'm talking to P2P, another day I'm talking to logistics, third day I'm talking to supply chain. Yeah. I'm not an expert in any of these things. So it's a domain agnostic space. So you should be really sharp at identifying pain points, because I feel that if it's a pain point, it's out in open. If you are trying to find a pain point, it's not a pain point, because I would know what is the challenge for me, right? I don't have to really think for 2 hours to identify what's the problem with me or with my function, right? So I always feel that pain points are always there, very pronounced. It's all about identifying them and fixing it with the data that we have.
And how do you stay up to date in this field? Because I have the impression that the field evolves very quickly, right? New tools, new techniques. How do you stay up to date?
So again, Serge, it's sometimes what happens in data science, right? The fanciest things that we do may not make money for the business. For example, if I take, I can do an OCR solution, I can do an NLP solution, I can do image or video-based solutions for the business. Necessarily doesn't mean that those solutions are going to make big money for the business, right? For me, every problem statement, I only look value. Yeah, for me, a problem statement becomes fancy, not by the technicalities involved in solving that problem statement. For me, that's the least of concern. For me, what excites me is the value. And sometimes what happens is when you go behind value, right? There will be a lot of projects where it's not heavy on techniques, in the sense that it's not really touching cutting edge sciences of deep learning, NLP, OCR, all of that. We will be working with a lot of structured data, and we'll be using conventional ML techniques. The proven techniques in clustering or in segmentation or in regression or classification or whatever, right? And that becomes a challenge sometimes for the generation of kids that we are going to work with, right? The colleagues that you're going to work with. We are talking about guys who are 21, 22, 23. For them, for their age, the most important thing is learning. Yeah. For us, value is the most important thing, but for a professional who is going to grow in that space, his main concern is, everybody is selfish about their own career and their own learning. For a 22, 25-year-old guy, their concern would be, how am I going to learn today and upskill myself, right? So that's why we need to really strike a balance between the projects that we're going to do and what we're going to do for learnings. For example, in operations analytics, if you take it as an example, we always create learnings by doing projects which may not make money for the business. So we do 90% of the projects we do just for value, and our only North Star is money. The higher the value, we bet on those projects, even if that's the simplest of projects to solve. I'm more happy because I can solve it fast and make more money for the business. But
and makes your department, makes your team a lot more relevant as well. Make sure that you can grow your team, you can prove your relevance.
But 10 to 20% of the time, we focus on doing use cases. Again, taking use cases from Kaggle, from UCLA, and putting internal hackathons within the team just for the learning. Because for a data scientist, if you don't give him learning and if you give everything else, he won't stay. Because especially in the first 10 years of your career, what everybody aspires to do is learn. So we need to create that space, especially in our space, because everything that we do won't be fancy enough for a data scientist to feel happy about what he's doing.
So you do kind of a explore type of thing, right? It's like 80-90% of the team you work on just driving the value, make sure you use the right tools, even if they're not the fanciest ones. Get the value out, prove the relevance of the team and of analytics. And then 10-20% of the time, make sure that you stay in touch with the latest technologies and apply on, let's say, more use cases that might not be relevant yet for the business, but just to keep the learning going.
Exactly, because Serge, I always say this to my managers. For a data science area, right? There are only 3 things. There is no real mantra or secret about managing a data science team. There are only 3 things that you should be careful about. First and foremost, learning. You have the best of everything for him, but the learning is not there, he or she won't stay. Second thing is the culture. You have the greatest learning, greatest career path, everything, but the culture in the team is toxic. They're going to stay, because you are looking at professionals who are spoiled for choices. The people with a lot of choices in their life. They are not dependent on one space for their career, right? You're looking at a crowd with a lot of opportunities, a lot of options in their life. So second thing is the respect, the culture that we build in our team. Third, obviously, is the reward and career growth. That's
career
common,
growth. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I think these three are the areas that we need to be really careful when you are building a data science practice. You're learning, culture, and reward. What really excites me is the maturity in data science that we brought in operations in the last 2 years. You can literally see that on the floor. The discussions that we're having with the business, with the stakeholders in the team, the leads, right? The leads have completely, embraced that thought process. Yeah. When we talked 2 years back, it was up to the directors level that we managed to get to that thought process. Right? Now, if you go to the floors, the leads are leading it. Yeah. For example, if you take P2P, for example, right, or O2C, for example, the leads are leading that. They are actually saying, "Man, Vijoe, let's do this." So it has become a point of we have reached a point where we don't have to tell them how to do it, how to identify. They themselves are thinking, "Man, this is a problem statement. I believe there is data. There is something that we can do," right? So beyond money, Serge, what I'm really proud of is that culture that we bought in operations, in value creation, how to create value using data science, right? That's a theme that I'm most passionate for.
Great, good, Vijoe. Thanks a lot, man. I think great session, interesting learnings about analytics, about your career. So thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me here. I'm hoping that in our conversation would help at least few those who are hearing to this. Great talking to you, Serge, as always.
Thank you for listening to us. We'll meet again soon with more interesting stories and insights that will make you think, "I wish my boss told me that." Cheers.